everyone. So glad you could be here today with us. I'm Karen Yates with IATDG, and I'd like to welcome you to our next session, check-in from around the world with WFTGA. Our facilitator for this session is the president of the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, Alicia Ritchie, and she's joining us today from Cape Town, South Africa. Alicia is a tourist guide specializing in culinary and wine tourism. She's a member of the board of directors of Cape Town Tourism and a member of the board for Women in Tourism, Western Cape. She's in her second term as the elected president of WFTGA, and it's a not-for-profit organization based in Vienna, Austria, with members in over 100 countries. And Alicia, IATDG has really enjoyed getting to know you and WFTGA, and we're excited for everyone to hear more about your association. And we also have 3 of our IATDG members here today joining us from around the world. And given what time it is, where some of you are, we appreciate you being willing to go the extra mile for us today. So we've got Jane Beatty, who is somewhere in New Zealand, and you'll hear about that in just a minute. We've got Daryl Carson, who is in Paris, and James Saunders in Toronto. And again, thank you all for being here. So Alicia, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Karen, and to your team. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here. So this year we've really all had to adapt and become a little more flexible and address our needs a little differently. And in this session, we're going to be speaking to 3 dynamic tourism colleagues, and I think many of you actually have met them before at this very conference, which we're now doing virtually. So we're going to be checking in with them to find out exactly where in the world they are and what they've been up to during 2020. And before we get on to them, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about the World Federation and myself. So as Karen mentioned, I am based in Cape Town, South Africa, and it's steadily approaching midnight here, so it's quite late in the evening. We focus on promoting the tourist guide profession and advancing the sector by ensuring that both the visitors and our tourism colleagues are aware of the value that we as qualified and licensed tourist guides can add to a visitor's experience. We've got members in over 100 countries. We're an international association, and the US is actually one of our members, the National Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, consisting themselves of 22 member associations. And then we have a few other members in the USA. And I must tell you, I've always had a bit of the travel bug in me, and it's such an honor to be traveling since I was a teenager. And I really do believe as a tourist guide, it's the best way to share our passion in our cities and our countries, and of course, our unique and interesting perspectives. So I'm quite excited now to check in with these tourism colleagues from 3 beautiful countries and to hear a bit more about their perspectives and their experiences. So Jane, James, Daryl, our industry is one where passion really drives us. And the 3 of you have had quite a diverse journey within the travel and tourism sector as I've researched a little bit. So tell us a little bit about your current surroundings and your experience in your respective locations. Jane, let's start with you. So you are working remotely in New Zealand. That's quite exciting. Tell us a bit more about where you are and what you're up to.
Yes, good morning, kia ora from Aotearoa, New Zealand. For those of you that know me, you've normally seen me stateside. I have lived in the US for the last 30 years, based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, but this year we had planned to come home to New Zealand anyway, but my father-in-law got very sick and had to have heart surgery, so it kind of expedited our trip home to New Zealand. And I have to say the privilege of having a dual passport and being able to be home in New Zealand at the moment with COVID raging in the US is a pretty good stay here in New Zealand, and so we've chosen to do that. And you'll probably see my background. We also chose to purchase a camper and travel around the country. So this is our home, apartment, office and wheels all in one. And right now, I'll actually turn this around very quickly. You might be able to see out the front window. There's a lake out there. We are sitting on the outskirts of Dunedin in the far south of New Zealand. We came to boil up the coffee this morning and sit and do some work, and indeed this session. So My background is in mostly in heritage interpretation. I train guides how to communicate with visitors, predominantly in national parks, museums, and other sites, but have also been doing some work with IATDG to that end as well. I design museum exhibits, do master planning. I have been a tour guide with various organizations around the world, normally non-for-profits, mostly nature-based tours, and do a lot of work in that area, and I absolutely love it. And here in New Zealand, tourism is continuing with the borders closed. New Zealanders, and especially people in camper vans, are absolutely everywhere at the moment. And we'll talk a bit more about that as we move on.
Thank you, Jane. And you are surrounded by water, so that's quite also an interesting perspective as well. James, you've experienced working in cities across the globe. How has it been living in Toronto?
Well, I'm originally from London, so I'm a big city boy, and I've lived here for nearly 30 years. In fact, the great thing about this conference is I was able to run into somebody I know back from the bad old days working in Spain in the 1980s. So I've worked on 7 continents. Toronto is home, has been for ages. And I do a mixture of both tour directing and I do a little bit of local guiding. And as you can see from the banner behind me, get that right, Tourist Guide Association of Toronto. I happen to be the chair. The nice people of the city think I should be running the Association for Tour Guides. And during this lockdown, I've been able to do a lot of things that we've been wanting to do for ages. You've just knuckled down, and I've spent a lot of time doing things, getting this up and running properly, doing a lot of training sessions for our members. And basically, we're going to come out bigger and stronger than we were before. So it's quite a thing. And again, trying to tell people there's more to Toronto than the highway going to Niagara Falls. That's always our big issue here. But as I say, good place to be stuck.
Thank you, James. And we'll touch a bit more on that a little later as well. So Daryl, you have used your time to explore Paris a little bit, I believe, and you've been a bit of a domestic tourist.
Yes, I have. Yes, hi everyone, I'm Daryl Carson. I moved to Paris just a few months before the pandemic hit, and we went into lockdown for a couple of months, but then after that, we had the summer free, and I took full advantage of the fact that there are no Americans, Japanese, Chinese, anybody outside of Europe. So there's very few tourists here, and I've been exploring Paris, teaching myself all about Paris and the sights, and loving it. Yeah.
Thanks, Daryl. So James, bigger and stronger, quite a positive thought for us. So that leads me to my next question, or I should ask you, what has been an absolute highlight for you this year? And we all know this year has been a year full of lowlights and a really not a great year, but there has to be one positive thought and one highlight that's come after this, out of this year for you. So James, let's go straight on to you. You wrapped up earlier with bigger and stronger. What would you say in addition to that?
Well, I've got to say, first of all, the highlight of the year was I added my 7th continent, took a group of Australians down to Antarctica, which was absolutely mind-blowing. I don't know if people have been there. If they haven't, saved the money. It's worth every cent of going there. It is a changing thing. But back to what's happened at the Tourist Guide Association in Toronto is sort of sat on the back boiler. It was sort of, oh, you know, we'll have a coffee morning, we'll have this, we'll have that. And we've gone forward. We're in a city that doesn't believe in licensing guides. We were fighting for that for 10 years. In the end, we got to the point that we just smile nicely at the city and ask them if they like to travel and how they can get there, because they have no interest in tourist guides. You know, selling hotels, they're very happy. Getting people there for conferences, they're very happy, but they're not interested in our industry. So we've taken a little bit more command of our own certification program, and we've managed to get a lot of people involved in it. We've involved Mitch from Trip School, who was involved in some educational sessions. We have somebody in our area who is a trainer for the World Federation of Tourist Guide Associations, and she did some training for us. So what we've tried to do for our members is to have one educational session per month, one social session per month, and then throw something in, either training or not quite so educational, just generally helpful. So for instance, we had Know Your Client, and then I did a thing on how to take a picture with your phone, because a lot of people think they can take a picture, but they can't. So I showed my colleagues how to do that. And then we had a cocktail party with Zoom. So we're doing a lot that our members will come out. First of all, hopefully they feel loved by the association, that we've reached out and touched them. We've had participation on Zoom of about 1/3 of our members. They're coming out that we've informed them. We're showing them value for membership. And believe it or not, in these harsh times, we've managed to pick up 5 new members, which for an organization of 100 people is not too bad. So we're aiming to get some more people in as well. So we'll come out bigger. We'll have more members, they'll be better qualified, and we'll be able to show the world who we are, and we can offer something special if you come to this city.
Fantastic, James. So you've had both a personal highlight and from your association point of view, and a fantastic job in membership retention. Really good.
Retention, we built.
Retention, yeah, well, retention and built, of course.
Built
So
is
really good job with that. And of course, all the training speaks to sustainability in our sector as well, and a career potentially. Jane, what has been your sort of highlight from your side?
I think my highlight and challenge all in one has been learning to do everything by Zoom. I work on a lot of different projects. I've got projects going in Kansas and Maine at the moment. And of course, being the one that's at the furthest away time zone, I'm always the one that has to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning to be on said Zoom calls. But as a trainer and working a lot with people who are trying to find ways to communicate with their audiences, learning to do things virtually has been a really interesting challenge for a lot of people, but also a fun one. And so I think the other part of working remotely and also traveling around New Zealand has been looking at the creativity of people. So here in New Zealand, one could say that tourism's back to normal, quote unquote. You know, everybody's out and about. They don't have to wear masks. They're out doing kayaking trips. I was in Milford Sound just the other day, which is a major tourist attraction here in New Zealand in the southwest of the country. And there are tour buses driving through, not nearly as many, but they're still there. So people are taking advantages of smaller group tours now. They're going and doing activities in their own backyard because they're cheaper. They've had to lower the prices for Kiwis to get out and explore them, but New Zealanders are really getting to see their own country and revisit who each other are. And so traveling around in a camper van, staying at holiday parks, we have met so many New Zealanders that we perhaps wouldn't have seen before. Because they're just not out and about. They'll find their way to family and friends in places that they hadn't explored before. So we're really starting to take a very big look at our own country, to the point that other than in areas like Milford Sound and Queenstown and some of the other big tourist areas, tourism operators here are actually ahead of where they were last year in terms of income and visitor numbers actually coming through. So it's been amazing to see. And then with colleagues around the rest of the world, helping them and watching them see how they can develop their tours virtually and do things in a different way and still find audiences, because people are still desperate for information and to see something different, and the opportunity that they may not actually get to visit something for a number of years down the track means that they've got to take advantage of what's actually out there now. So seeing the creativity has just been incredible.
Fantastic. And your point of smaller groups and activating the domestic aspect of the tours is a really good one. Many of us have been told that is the future for us as tourist guides in the coming months. So it's really nice that that has started with you already, and to kind of take the lead in that and let us follow suit in a way and learn from that as you have operated already. And the creativity, wonderful. And I think you can write chapters on that moving forward and incorporate that into your storytelling. And I think that would make for a whole separate webinar. So we look forward to part 2 of your story, Jane. I think there's a lot you can share with us in moving forward as well.
Great.
Daryl, what would you share with us has been your highlight?
That's a difficult question. It's been, to be completely honest, it's been a hard year. It's made me look at myself and figured myself, what is important to me. I've had to learn how to not do anything. I'm a doer. I love to be doing things, exploring, etc. And when we were in confinement for 2 months, and we're back in confinement now in Paris, it's taught me to learn to just be and not do. But the highlight this year for me was going to Venice. We took a 2-week, we took advantage of the fact that my husband got laid off from his job, and I've obviously been out of work. So we took 2 weeks and we went to Venice on a road trip, which is something you get to do when you live in Europe, is just drive across country, which was amazing. We got to see all of northern Italy. Being in Venice when there are almost no tourists is incredible. I mean, we went to the island of Murano where they do the glass blowing, and there was almost no one there. To walk around the canals and just have that peacefulness there without large groups was really, really a gift. We also got to go to the Dolomites. I got to see Neuschwanstein Castle in southern Germany, went to Strasbourg, went to Bordeaux, went to Nice. So we've really taken advantage of the ability to travel within Europe while we could.
Yeah.
So that would be my highlight. Yeah.
So your opportunity for self-reflection also came through. And I would say that's also a highlight. We get so little time for ourselves and for self-reflection. And I wouldn't say it's a highlight, but it's definitely something that's come out of it. It's been a huge realization for me to get the sense of greater community. We're so far apart from each other, but we've just realized how small our world actually is. And the supportive behavior of our colleagues has really given that immense feeling of community for many of us. And it's just, our profession is so overwhelmingly helpful, and that has been absolutely amazing. So we've kind of checked in a little with you from New Zealand, Paris and Toronto. And what would your thoughts be on the actual situation with regards to COVID in your cities? Are you feeling comfortable in your cities? I know some of you have gone back down into lockdown. Do you feel that right now you're happy where you are given the circumstances, or do you think that things could improve? And I'm going to start with James on this one.
Well, Toronto, our numbers shot up over the last 10 days, 2 weeks. So we've gone down to more of a lockdown. How do I feel? I'm fine. I go out for a walk every morning. I go for a walk early when I know there aren't people around. I take care. I wear a mask when needed. When I'm away from everybody, walking along the waterfront, I don't. The city is getting busier every day. The actual feel of the city is getting back to normal. I have various friends who are guiding in one form or the other. There's a little bit of work going around. We've got visitors from places like Vancouver and Montreal and so on. But on the whole, the city is the fiscal capital of the country. So people have to come here whether they want to or not. Not every meeting can be done by Zoom. There's the example of one of the hotels had a big business meeting and they blocked a whole floor of the hotel and the conference rooms, and everything was in there, and they made their own bubble. Nobody was allowed into that bubble, not even the chambermaids. The people had to pick up their own linens and so on. So people are getting imaginative on how they do things. People are being tourists more in their own city. I got a friend who does these ghost tours. I went around and took pictures for him. He had 10 people, which is the maximum. And as an association, we've visited some of the sites that are open. And yes, we can only have 10 in a group inside or 20 in a group outside. So there are things like that that allow us into certain places. And as Daryl was saying, it's a joy because suddenly we got to a place and there weren't the great unwashed masses. I actually managed to get some good pictures, but the city feels good. And I think part of it is the attitude of the Canadians that they always say, sorry to each other and go on regardless.
Yeah. And Daryl, your thoughts on what you've noticed in the city?
It's been in different phases. In the first phase of confinement, back in March, April, the city was dead. Everyone stayed inside. They completely respected confinement. And now this time around, it's a little different. The confinement is a little more open. There are a few more stores open that you can go to. You have to have a thing called an attestation, which is a document saying where you're going and why. But the first time around, the police were checking you everywhere. Every time I went out, I would come across police and they'd ask for my attestation. But this time, I haven't seen a single policeman asking for that. The parks are open, which they weren't the last time. So when I go out to go grocery shopping, like I did today, there are people on their way places. The only difference is restaurants are closed, bars are closed. There's a curfew, which happens at 10 p.m. So everyone is supposed to be home by 10 p.m. But the takeout restaurants are allowing people to get takeout food and stuff like that. So there's a sense of normalcy without being too heavy of a feeling like it was last time. And I have a pretty good feeling that Macron will open things back up at the mid-December point so that people can go celebrate Christmas with their family, because that is important.
Of course.
But we're getting used to it. There's just this feeling of like, okay, it's okay. We're gonna all wear our masks and we're gonna hand sanitize and look out for each other.
The normality of it has become quite clear to all of us, and it's something we need to work with. That's just the way life is for all of us at the moment. Just as we approach the end of our session, I think let me put one last question to the three of you, and let's see how you take this. If you could go back to January and ask yourself for one piece of advice that would prepare you for 2020 and what the year would be, what do you think that would be? So Jane, let's start with you.
That is a great question. The advice I would give myself is never think that anything can't possibly happen. The year of 2020 has been one where every single day, I mean, we all see the stories on Facebook and in the news and everywhere else about all of the extremely strange things that have happened. So one day a spaceship will land on the front lawn of the White House. I'm convinced of it. But that aside, I think continuing to learn. Never think that there's a skill that, I'll put that off and learn it tomorrow or wait until next year, or, well, that can't possibly happen. So if you have an opportunity to learn a new skill, learn a new program, look at the technology, that's been one thing that's been driven home to me very much. As a trainer, I'm usually working face-to-face with people, not online like this. So that was a steep learning curve. So really get into the online and learn everything you can about how it functions and works, and how you can possibly use technology to better meet the needs of your clients, your guests. There's a possibility that we may be in and out of shutdowns for a long time to come. So what can you do to better further yourself and your capabilities? Yeah,
fantastic, Jane. And we've had a little bit of a comment on someone saying move to New Zealand. They would tell themselves.
I think you have to get in line. There's a lot of people wanting to come to New Zealand, but trust me, New Zealand is very, very much looking forward to everybody being able to come and visit sooner rather than later. There's only so many New Zealanders that can take up so much tourism here.
I'm sure. And as we're running out of time, James, so James, your thoughts? What would you give yourself an advice?
you know, don't miss an opportunity. You know, I was able to do things. This is the first summer I've had off since I was 15. So I've enjoyed going out. I've enjoyed learning my own city. Learn more of your own city would be the best thing. Daryl was saying it. It's not his city. It's a new city for him. But I've lived in this city for nearly 30 years. And I'm putting up pictures on Facebook and telling my colleagues, okay, so where was I? And I don't know. Well, it's just off the main street. There's this beautiful statue. What is hidden in a city? The beauty within the own city. Those who know me or follow me on Facebook, I'm looking for flowers and things. Look for the beauty in your own city. Because I tell you what, my first city tour after this is going to be incredible, because there's going to be so much more feel for my city as a tourist guide in this city than ever before. I'm going to have a better appreciation of this city and the people in it.
Fantastic, fantastic, James. That is great advice to appreciate what is on our doorstep. Yeah. And Daryl, from your side?
I would say, don't forget, this too shall pass. Don't lose hope. That's, you know, I'm a very hopeful person, and there were times this past year that I felt hopeless. And now that they just announced the vaccine is going to probably be here in France in the spring, you know, hope is coming back for me. And yeah, that's my advice to myself. Don't lose hope.
Thank you, Dara. And I think that kind of wraps it up perfectly for this session. Let's, you know, it's difficult to stay positive, but let's be supportive of one another. This too shall pass, as you say, Dara. And James, appreciate your sentiments. Really, let's learn what's in our city. And then Jane, learning technology. Of course, where would we have been this year without technology? So in closing, thank you, Dara, Jane, James, for this quick check-in around the world. In future, we'll have some other countries, and with due to time, we couldn't add more countries. But thank you to the viewers and to Karen, a great session. So all the best for the rest of the conference, and please stay safe.
Thanks.
Thank you so much to you, Alicia, for facilitating. Thanks to all of you guys. I love the different perspectives that you have from where you are in the world. And of course, we're also ready to get out there again. But it's good to connect with you all, even if it is just virtually. So again, thank you.